So someone told us about a train that goes all the way from Nice to Genoa. Well, we couldn't resist. Mini breaks aren't something we often do. In fact, the last one was 7 years ago in Marrakesh, and it ended in disaster after we had a dodgy sausage in the Jenar El Fanar. Do you want happy life or croco? So we decided not to take any chances this time and stocked up on Haribo, most of which I'd eaten by the time we got to Cap d'Ai. We had reserved seats for the 3-hour €30 journey, which meant we got to sit opposite each other and stare longingly into each other's eyes as the French Riviera gradually gave way to the Italian Riviera. And before you could say double cappuccino, we were there at the Genova Piazza Principe. We weren't actually following that man, it just looks like it. Anyway, once we shook him off, we headed into the old town to our Airbnb. And on the way in, we said hi to the neighbours. We then climbed the 107 steps to our apartment, where we were greeted in typical Italian style by our host, Mirko. Who then proceeded to give us an extensive lesson in Italian key use, before leading us up yet more steps to the kitchen, and then onto the magnificent roof. We'd had our doubts whether this was the right apartment for us, but suddenly it all made sense. And it wasn't long before I was playing with my toys, and we were sampling the local birra and planning our evening's entertainment. We decided to visit a Pesto restaurant we'd read about in the New York Times. That's what happens when you've been together 15 years. Il Genovese has been in the same location up the side of the Mercato Orientale since 1912. The co-owner is a man called Roberto Panizza, who, as well as being an authority on pesto, organises the World Pesto Championships. But before we could experience his legendary pesto, we ordered a starter of fritto misto, which instead of using fish, used vegetables and tripe. I then followed it up with a delicious Ligurian rabbit in olives, and scorzonera, a serpent root vegetable in fresh anchovy sauce. And Mr. Boo had Roberto's legendary pesto in a dish called Trophy al Pesto. Delicious. And after devouring that lot, we headed back into the old town to our apartment up 107 steps, where Shirley Bassey was waiting for us on the local radio station. The next morning we were up with the cock and off into the new town to see the Mercato Orientale. Looking at all that food made us quite hungry, so we decided to double dip at the nearby Il Genovese, where Mr. Boo had a mixed salad of hard-boiled eggs, tomatoes, tuna, ham, pesto, potatoes, bread, and I had what he had the night before. Delicious and just a tenner. So 3 stone heavier, we set off to behave like proper tourists Don't worry, we'll keep this bit brief. This arch is dedicated to the Genovese who died in World War I. And this is the house Christopher Columbus lived in before he discovered America. The trouble is, it's not quite what it seems. Columbus lived here in the 15th century, but it was then knocked down, only to be rebuilt in the 18th century. Quite a good fake though. Tourist activity duly completed, we headed back into the old town to get some booze, and then we had an apéro on the roof and planned where we were going to get our next meal. We decided to search out a trattoria we'd read about called Ugo. It was in the old town. Unfortunately, like many things in the old town, it wasn't that easy to find, and we were all set to give up the ghost and head to Mackie D's when we turned a corner and spotted a window with some traditional Italian washing hanging above it. Trattoria Ugo is the sort of place I love. Simple, unpretentious and full of locals enjoying a great night out. For the record, I had minestrone soup followed by moscardini affagati, which was small octopus in spicy tomato sauce. And Mr. Boo had pecorino in salsa di gnocchi. Our bellies full of food and wine, we took a stroll down to the modern waterfront, where there's a fancy aquarium and the inevitable big wheel. We then headed up the 107 steps to bed. The next morning, after breakfast at the theatre cafe with an operatic busker, we headed to the Panarama della Sitta. That's the viewing platform. Is my Italian improving? Mind you, it really is quite a special view. Having taken in views that were to die for, as they say on TripAdvisor, we headed back down the hill for lunch to a place called Trattoria Da Maria, which was recommended by a Facebook friend of mine. Trattoria Da Maria was once run by a 100-year-old woman called Maria. Sadly, she's no longer with us. But the restaurant lives on, and it's a monument to tradition. The menu is handwritten every day, and 2 courses, including wine, cost just €10. It's no wonder the place was packed. I had lovely ravioli followed by chicken and homemade chips. And Mr. Boo had a vela scallop. Both simple and delicious. You don't go to Da Maria for fine dining. You go there for something much more important in my view: authenticity. This really is a place where road menders rub shoulders with office workers and students and Japanese tourists. It's truly a trattoria for everyone. After lunch, we had a quick espresso with a very friendly barista. And then we were off to see Via Garibaldi, Genoa's World Heritage Site. Via Giuseppe Garibaldi, to give it its full name, was built by the Genoan aristocracy in the Renaissance, and it's testament to the extraordinary wealth that existed in the city at that time. Charles Dickens wrote, "When shall I forget the endless details of these rich palaces, the great heavy stone balconies one above another, the doorless vestibules, the massively barred lower windows, the immense public staircases, the thick marble pillars, and the strong dungeon-like arches, and dreary, dreaming, echoing vaulted chambers, among which the eye wanders again and again and again, as every palace is succeeded by another." I think Dickens quite liked Genoa, as did Oscar Wilde, who said you could live here for 9 francs a day, boy compris. Sadly, it was now time for us to say our goodbyes to Genoa, and it wasn't easy, as we'd rather fallen in love with the place. It's a city with so many layers. It may in part be a tourist town, but it's also a real working port, with all that entails. It's like visiting an old aunt who's just a little bit down on her luck, but she still has great stories to tell, and a wardrobe full of fantastic old clothes. Farewell, Genoa, and when the world begins again, we'll be back.